All right, thanks for having me. And before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the beautiful budget on which I am sitting on today. Nyala kadak nungar mort kang kadak ninja budget. I'd like to acknowledge that I am sitting and working and living and growing my family today on Wajak Nungar budget. And pay my respects to our elders, past and present, and the amazing Aboriginal young people that have worked alongside professionally, voluntarily, or like the Maba Aqua in partnership with us. It's really strengthened the work that we do. And I'd also like to acknowledge the various lands in which people are joining in from today. All right, so just a bit about YEP. So we're a peer education project. So we're a youth peer-based sexual health project. So I have a small team of youth peer educators that work alongside us. And they go out and they provide education sessions out in community. If you're out in the regions, they do also have some capacity to do some hybrid sessions online. So you can reach out to us for that. And then we also do youth sector capacity building. We can do that online. So sessions like today, and then we also have consultation services. So that might be for a youth service to increase their SHBBV knowledge or info, or maybe you've got a particular issue at your service, or maybe you're a sexual health service and you're wanting to increase your engagement with young people. We can help. So these are the topics that we can cover for you. So please do feel like you can reach out. Our youth sessions are getting pretty much booked out for the year, but I do have more capacity for the professional development sessions, and I can show you the activities that the crew would do out on shift as well. All right. So just what before we start talking about sexting today, this is just a bit of a guidance as to where we frame our work. Of course, you may do this a bit differently in your service, but this is how we do the work that we do. So we're guided by the Youth Work Code of Ethics. And a really key part of that is seeing young people as the primary client. So all the work that we do at YEP is by young people for young people, and we're really driven by consultation we do on a regular basis with young people about how they want to receive education, and really working with them. And it's really about that client-led practice. So there is a really long history of framing young people's use of technology as inherently risky in both schools or in public community. So, but despite this, young people's practices are yet to conform to that normatively safe model of technology engagement. So that suggests that like this idea of abstinence only, so just saying don't sext, isn't necessarily going to be effective because young people are going to do it anyway. So really what we're advocating for is a new approach to digital sexuality education that incorporates that principle of harm minimization, of informal learning, and a client-led practice. And we do take a harm minimization approach. So it's really acknowledging that young people are going to be doing these activities. We've taken harm minimization in other areas like AOD, but often we might still hear in community that like, oh, if we talk to people about sexting or sex or sexual health, are they just going to be doing it? Really, we know that young people are doing these behaviors anyway. Or, like we know in the AOD space, if they're not doing it yet and we give them the information, this may delay their use, or maybe they don't decide not to. And it's the same when we talk about these practices. So young people are going to have sex and start sexting or exploring online anyway. And going back to that youth work code of ethics, we're respecting their decision. It's sex positive, seeing sex as a healthy and pleasurable experience if and when they want it to. And it's much more cost effective for us to work in the prevention space than waiting until something negative has happened and trying to kind of pick up the pieces. All right. So when we're talking about sexting, just to frame the discussion, so sexting is any form of sexy talk, sharing sexy images or sharing sexy videos on a phone or another device. So it could be iPad, computer, whatever. So for some people, sexting is a fun way to express their sexual identity and communicate with partners or friends, or it could be to like maybe experiment with their bodies and imagination. Now, this is a resource that I would highly recommend. It's from SECA. So it's made for people specifically with disabilities, but we also find this resource really epic for people that are visual learners, maybe English isn't their first language, or just require a bit of a visual prompt for their learning. So we recommend that. So you can download it from the link at the bottom, or you can also order hard copies from SECA. So what classifies under the law as a sexualized image or text? So a sexualized image is a photo, video, or picture that shows a young person naked, partially naked, in their underwear, or as a sexual pose, or engaging in sexual activity. Now, what the frig is a sexual pose, right? So we have to remember that if this was to ever end up in court, it's the judge that decides if that's a sexy pose. So, and then we think about, well, who's going to be a judge? Probably going to be an older white man, right? So is granddad going to think that you being on your Instagram posing in a certain way is a sexy image? Have a think. Text, emails, or online comments that are sexual in nature, for some people might call them dirty texts, also count as sexting. And if that relates to a young person under the age of 18, that is against the law. So the laws about sexting and young people apply to real photos, photoshopped pictures. So they're things like you might hear young people talking about like deep fakes. They could be videos or stories, like written story, could be drawings, cartoons. So they're the things that young people usually don't know about. So they might know about like, oh, if I take a picture of someone, they might not realize it also includes drawings. It does also include texts and emails in digital, electronic, and or printed form. Okay, it doesn't apply to images that people would find like socially acceptable. So for example, like a child in the bath that their mum took and they sent it to their aunt when they're quite young, things like that. So things around consent and sharing photos. So these are the things that we usually, if we were to do a youth workshop, that we'll discuss with people. So like if you want to send a sexy image or a text to someone, make sure it's okay with them first. So again, talking to young people about consent, we need to make sure that we're having these conversations about what they're doing about consent in real life, which is often the stuff that we do, but also making sure that we have these conversations about what they're doing with their online sexual lives. Because young people are kind of living out these in duality. So it's not just that they're having experiences online or just having experiences in real life, they're often doing them simultaneously. Making sure that they always ask if they can take the photo or video of somebody if they're over 18. And that consent can be removed at any time. So somebody might have said, yeah, you can have this picture, but if they say, you know what, delete it, or we've broken up now and I want you to delete all that stuff, making sure you do it. And that it needs to be really specific. So sometimes we'll work with young people and they might have an understanding that like somebody sent them a video that was on a Snapchat and it faded over some certain amount of time or something, and they took a screenshot of it, and they might not have an understanding that actually that consent wasn't given to them to record it or to take it in that way. So consent needs to be really specific. And if you're unsure, talking to your partner or who you're sexting with. Making sure that you ask about sharing it before you upload. And often we find that we need to be really clear with young people about sharing, is that also includes maybe holding the device and sharing it around. Young people tend to get like, oh, if I text it on or I put it online, that's sharing. But we need to be really specific about like that also includes like showing your device. And that tends to be a bit of a surprise. Also just being cautious about tagging people. So some people may not want to be tagged in a post or in a location for various reasons. So just checking in that you do that. All right, so just some more things on the law and sexting. So key points to remember is that sexting is against the law when it involves someone under the age of 18, and that includes taking, keeping, sending, or asking for a sext. Now, that can be really confusing for young people when they're like, well, hold on, I thought I could legally have sex when I was 16. So you're saying that I could be dating and having sex with someone when I'm 16 or 17, but I can't send them like a dirty text or an image of myself? I'm like, yes, exactly. What it also means is that you also can't take an image of yourself under the age of 18. So if I was under the age of 18 and I took a photo of myself, it does mean that I've actually recorded child pornography. And if I send it somewhere, that means I'm distributing child pornography. And that can be a big one for young people to learn. And the asking as well. So even if somebody is under the age of 18, they sure, yes, you can have it. Because they're under the age of 18, they don't have the ability legally to consent to that. So any of those four things, taking, keeping, sending, or asking, if the person is under 18, even if it's of yourself, it is against the law. So Legal Aid has a huge amount of resources about sexting and the law to really support young people to make informed decisions. So we can't make harm reduction decisions if we don't know what the consequences might be. So that's a good place to start. This is an example of one of the flyers that they have for young people, so you can access that on their website. And they also have resources for fact sheets for maybe young people or want more information, or yourselves, just to be really clear about what conversations you'll have with your clients. They also have a number of videos about people that have maybe around school, or maybe something's happened to them, to just about like, what are the consequences if this gets out there. Usually what we find with young people is that it's not necessarily the legal stuff that they're worried about, it's actually the social consequences. So like Something might get shared around school, and then everybody starts talking about it, and then the impacts of that could happen. And we definitely find like having peer stories about that, or maybe not necessarily about the peer, but maybe something that happened in their school really kind of clicks over with young people. All right. Any questions at this point? No. So let's just have a think about what young people are actually doing. So now we know what the law is. What are young people actually doing? So the recent La Trobe Secondary Students Survey has helped guide us for this. What I will acknowledge is that this is not always, this isn't done in schools. It's more transition to online, which is great. It means that we get young people that are disengaged from education to participate in it, that are within those age groups of year 10, 11, 12. However, I recognize that many of the young people we work with may not be the type of young people that self-selected to participate in an online survey because of literacy, or they just didn't want to do it, or they didn't want to select to use their data on that. But we do still think it's a good capture of their experiences. But keeping in mind with the at-risk nature of some young people we work with, they may be participating in these activities, maybe at a bit of a higher rate, or particularly maybe doing these activities a bit younger. Just something to keep in mind. So it did have a huge cohort of young people that participated. So almost 7,000 people participated, and averagely people were about 16. So keeping in mind, they wouldn't legally be at the age of sexting legally at this point. But what are they doing? Just something to keep in mind as well is that almost 42% of people identified outside of being heterosexual. And generally, we know that LGBTIQ populations experience online dating or online sexual activities at a younger age or at a higher rate than their heterosexual peers. So just something to keep in mind. And that also sexual identity doesn't equal sexual behavior. So a lot more people were participating in what we would kind of, I guess, label as like LGBT sexual behaviors at a higher percentage than people who actually identified that. So just keeping that in mind. So I'll just let you have a quick squeeze about like sexual practices that people were doing. So as you can see, like 86% of people are viewing pornography. And again, this is at an age where, legally they shouldn't be able to access this content. All right. So on average, 15 is about the age that people are becoming sexually active. But then the survey also asked people where they're getting their information about sexual health. So as no surprise, the internet is a huge space that people are turning to for information regarding sexual health. Friends are the main one. So that's why we totally value the space of peers. So also really remembering that if you're talking to a young person, remembering that this isn't a conversation you're just having with them. This is going to go out to their friend circle. So that's a really powerful place, particularly if you can get young leaders involved in these conversations. Now, have a think about how many people you might think within this age group, so about 16, are participating in sexting. Just have a little think. So 82% of people have received a sexual text. Almost 80% have received a sexual photo. Over half have sent a sexual text and similarly sent a sexual photo. Over half of people have used social media for sexual reasons. So that could be things like people sliding into their DMs, or it could be that maybe they're engaging with people on pages or things like that. And then a lower percent of people have actually sent photos of somebody else to somebody else online. All right. So when we talk about using social media for sexual reasons, the majority of people are doing so with their partner. So that could be a simple thing like, oh, we use Instagram DMs to talk about sexy things, or dating or things like that. A smaller amount of people are doing so with someone that they only know online. So these are conversations that we need to make sure we're having with young people about, like, what are things that they should be looking out for as red flags, because we know that different platforms are going to be at higher risk to that. 13% are doing so with a stranger. 33% did so with someone that they're like seeing or dating, but they're not in a relationship with. Some people are doing it with a friend, and a small amount of people did so with someone that they've never met face to face. So yes, it's a smaller amount, but they're conversations that we should definitely be having with our young people. All right, so when people are sending sexually explicit images, who are they sending them to? So most people are sending them to a person that they're in a relationship with, or that they're dating or seeing. Some people are sending them to a friend. So in conversations with young people we've had, it could be that maybe they're sending it to a friend as a joke, or they could be sending it like, hey, I'm about to send this to my partner. Any edit suggestions, things like that. A significant amount, so almost a quarter of people are sending it to a stranger. So again, having conversations with young people about like how are ways that they might know that that's a safe or an unsafe place. Or maybe almost 10% of people that they just met face to face. So that could be maybe somebody they know casually, and again 5% somebody that they only know online. All right. Here we go. So the type of image they're sending. So the majority of it is suggestive. So maybe in their underwear, doing like a pose. It could be semi-nude, and about half of them are totally nude. So identifying information, so things like username, phone number, etc. So this is an awesome thing to know, that the majority of young people get that that's the stuff that is probably going to get them in more risky situations, either socially and or with the law. So the majority of people are getting that like not sharing identifying information is a good thing. So really, when we talk about harm reduction, it's about supporting them to have a full understanding about how to do that, or reflect on, are there other things that they could be doing to de-identify themselves. So about 32% are saying that they do include their face. So just getting them to consider a bit like, what are the consequences of that? And then again, they get to decide if they do that. But again, client-led practice, respecting their decisions. We're only there to inform them of choices, and we need to be non-judgmental about the decisions that they make, but just informing them of those. All right, so thoughts about sexting. So the majority, again, of young people get that they need to be careful about sexting and that there could be negative consequences. So it's really about that they are in a place where they get that. It's about like, well, then what do they do about it? This is asking young people about how they felt when they received a text. So again, young people do this stuff because it's a part of their sexual experience. You can see down there at the bottom, different genders might feel a bit different about it. So the majority of the time, young people are feeling good about this stuff. That's awesome. And we saw that throughout the survey that most young people are having really positive sexual experiences. But some young people are also, as we see towards the bottom, are having some of those negative impacts. So supporting conversations on both sides. All right, now some harm reduction strategies that you can do for image-based sexting. So this is an activity that we do with our young people. Da, da, da. Do I have a copy of it here? Did I think it is? Yeah. Okay. I think it's in the cupboard. What I will do with you is bring it up on. Do we all remember paint? Yeah, let's bring up paint. So what we have done with our young people is that we've made these paints. We've made like a phone cutout. Oh, that's not what I want. I want a pencil. A phone cutout. And then we might have like a logo of whatever platform that particular group is using. So Snapchat's obviously a popular one. This is my phone. It's the iPhone, whatever, iPhone 1,000,000. And we might get them to hand out all each a copy of the phone, and we'll give them a pen or a pencil, and we get them to draw a sext that someone might send. So being very clear, this isn't an image I expect you to be drawing your own sext. This is like a sext that somebody would send. Or depending on the age group or the cohort that you're working with, we might do this in a whiteboard. But let's just pretend that this is our whiteboard that we're working with. So we would tell them to draw an whole image. So maybe I'll say, go into as much detail as you can. So I want this to not be thinking about like, who's going to find it. I want you to go into as much detail. So we'll get them to draw the face. They'll have details about, what genitals are there. Maybe this is a person with boobs, and then we'll get them to go into really big detail about what we can see. So like, okay, does this person also have like an eyebrow piercing? Do they maybe have like a tattoo on their neck? Do they have a scar from a cesarean they had? Or maybe they had like a leg injury at footy, so they've got a scar there. They've got like this really identifiable birthmark on their arm. Super detailed stuff. And then we get them to think about, what room is it in? Okay, well, this person's in a bathroom, and I'll be like, oh, what's in my bathroom that's really identifiable? I actually have this crack on my wall, and it's really annoying, and I hate that. What else could be in there? Oh, we can actually see in the background into my bedroom. And in my bedroom, on my bed, I've got my school uniform. So it's got my crest there on it. Also in the bathroom, I've got like my medication there with my name on it. I've also like gone to the toilet and I haven't flushed, so I'm gonna leave something in there. So then we get them to go into as much detail as we can. Okay, well, what are the things on the body that are going to make it identifiable? Now, normally they're going to be like, okay, well, we'll get rid of the face. That's pretty clear. So I might just like edit that out. They might be like, oh, well, let's maybe edit out or put some emojis over like the scars. I'm like, okay, well, maybe not everybody in school would know those things about maybe the one on your tummy, but maybe could like an ex-partner know, or like maybe a sibling, or like if your mom found it, would she know about it? That's there. And then that's the kind of stuff that we'll share about stories where like, oh, we knew this young person that like she actually just sent an image of like in a sexy pose with her hand, and actually got out that she had a birthmark on that hand in the school where the true story, a school we were working with, people started going around and looking at all the girls' hands, and then that's how they identified who it was with. And she felt a lot of shame about that going publicly. She felt really empowered about sending it out to her partner, but really didn't like that got out publicly and didn't like that got promoted. I don't know if any of you remember that story that went viral a while ago, somebody that did a nude and it went viral, not because it was a nude, but because the young person actually left a poo in the toilet and she ended up being called poo. And that's what she was embarrassed about. So again, with young people, it may not be that they're embarrassed about the nude, it could be that they don't want this stuff. So, okay, we'll flush the toilet or we'll give it a clean. Other things that people might know, oh, yeah, I've got my name on the meds. Or actually, I don't want people knowing that they're meds I take. I just don't want people knowing that. Yeah, I'll close the door into my bedroom because I've had slumber parties and people would know in school that that's kind of what my house looks like. And I'll maybe I'll crop out that bit on my bathroom. Because if any of the people that have been in my house know that the bathroom's there, that's really identifiable. So often young people might think, and we'll crop out the skirt. So often people might think like actually sending the body parts that are more sexualized are the bit that's risky. But really, when we drill down to it, is that often that tends to be the least risky bit. It's all the other stuff that's around them that's going to lead to places like identification. So again, it's up to you how you want to educate your young people on safer practices. But yeah, we really acknowledge that young people are going to be participating in these activities, and we want them to have more positive outcomes in community and with the law. Again, up to you how you want to do that. All right, so again, just some guidelines on making it safer, so making it as anonymous, remembering that consent has to be there and making consent a sexy thing. So also support young people about thinking about like how could you ask for consent online before you send like a dick pic, consensual dick pics. Awesome if you're over the age of 18 or you want to do that. Awesome. Consensual, non-consensual dick pics, not so great. So, it could be like eggplant emoji, picture emoji, question mark. And then the other person replies with a winky face or a thumbs up. Great, go and send it. They leave you on scene. Probs don't want it. So again, just some notes on how to remove unwanted nudes or offensive imagery. So some people may have nudes of them shared publicly. So there is some resources and some support that you can do. So some main things that we tell our young people. So staying calm. Tell them how you feel about it, because the quickest way to get this stuff down is to contact the person, if you know who shared it, to just tell them to take it down, because they might not realize that you want it down. Not giving into threats. So sometimes people will say like, oh, if you don't do this, I'm going to share your image. You can report it on the app or the platform. So if you don't know how to do that as a youth worker, you can just honestly just go into Google and be like, how do I remove an image from Instagram, things like that. Block the person that did it. You could collect evidence. Now, how to collect evidence is tricky, right? Because if they're under the age of 18 and you want to take a screenshot of it, doesn't that mean that you're going to be also capturing child pornography? So when we talked to the police about it, they said the best way to do it is screenshot it and then go immediately to the police station, because they'll see a time screen on it. So if it's taking you 20 minutes to get to the police station, they know that you were doing that just for evidence, versus screenshotting it, waiting another week, and then going to the police station. It's a bit different. You can also report it to the E-Safety Commission using the image-based abuse report form. Really just supporting people to remember that it's not their fault and it's not the first person it's happened to, and just really supporting them to hold space in that moment and linking them in. Are You Legal has more resources about this. This does count as image-based abuse if that has happened. So image-based abuse happens when an intimate image or video is shared without the consent of the person pictured. So an intimate image is one that includes a person's genital or anal area for somebody's breasts, or a person in religious attire that isn't normally that isn't wearing that, but they normally would. So, for example, if I was in the women's changing room and a friend of mine normally wears a hijab, but they weren't wearing it in the changing room, and I took a photo of her and I shared that, that would also count with under those guidelines, which we think is great. So this is what the image-based abuse report form. The great about doing e-safety reporting is that it's just based on taking the image down. So for example, they also have more rights than social media platforms. So for example, you say, hey, Facebook, I think this doesn't appeal to the guidelines. And they go, yes, it does. I'm not taking it down. The e-safety commissioner would be like, hey, I have more power than you. Take it freaking down. This does mean that you need to know where it is. So the young person is going to have to say like, oh, I know it's on this website. So yes, it does mean a bit more work. They can't just be like, oh, I've heard it's on the internet. They can't just find it. Take it down is a service that if you provide them with the image, they're able to kind of like use some coding to try to find that on the different apps. So it has on the right hand side, you'll see the different apps that they're linked up to. So if it's on the 6 of these, they're able to kind of reverse Google image search basically where this is and take it down. So that's another source you can use. We've gone through that. So often people may need counseling services or a bit more information. So going onto a referral resource and using the icon if you're in the Perth Metro or Burloo area, and looking at our resource for some information of that. If you're out in the regions, we usually recommend seeing your local mental health services and just checking if talking about sexual health or sexuality is something that they're interested in, and they can provide support in this area. Remembering that also the resource from SECA. They've got heaps about internet safety. On the eSafety Commissioner website, they've also got more resources. This is what their site looks like that's youth specific. Our Yarn and Quiet, the Department of Health's Yarn and Quiet Ways resource. Talk Soon, Talk Often is for parents or carers, and they also have this as an app. And they get the facts website from Department of Health. So that is our session for today. Please make sure to follow us on socials, and remembering that if you did want to book myself in for a future webinar, or professional development service, or consultation, that I am available. Any questions, folks?
Sorry, I'll just start talking. It's Claire here.
Hi, Claire.
Yeah, that was a really great presentation, Lorna. It was so interesting.
Oh.
And a little bit scary, but very interesting.
Yeah.
I just had a query about with the survey when they talk about a stranger versus someone they've only met online, or then someone they've only met face to face. So where are they sort of? Is there a breakdown or a sort of who are strangers? Are they people they've met in public but don't know and then start up sexting with, or is it online strangers, and how's that different from people they've only met online?
Yeah, it didn't break it down in that way for the wording of young people, so I think it's definitely open to interpretation as to what the young people decided that meant. Yeah. So yeah, but some feedback we can give about the next year's survey. Yeah. So that's
oh no, it's fine. It's just sort of interesting how they what people consider to be a stranger versus someone like I would consider someone that you've only met online to kind of be a stranger anyway. Obviously it's open to their own interpretation and how they see that person.
Yeah, so talking with young people in community, it seems to be that if they've just met someone online, they may actually call them that their friend. So it tends to be that if they've had ongoing relationships with them, that they wouldn't see that as a stranger. So for example, oh, we game online regularly, or we've been in the same chat room a few times, they don't feel like that's a stranger. So it seems like a stranger tends to be like a one-off engagement.
Yeah. And so are they then seeking out strangers to send or receive pictures to?
Sometimes, not always.
Because it was like 23% or 20% were strangers.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
It's sort of its own thing that people that they're actually doing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and definitely clients I've worked with, it will be that maybe they've just had people direct message them and asked for images or texts.
Okay. Yeah.
And they kind of participated in that. So they may not have been looking for it, but they were actually sold out for that, and then they engaged in it.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Helen,
did you have a question? Oh, yeah. Happy for questions from anybody?
I have a question. Hi. Firstly, that was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much, Lorna.
I
wanted to clarify again about the whole messaging strangers and like exchanging of nudes with strangers. It's like very easy on the social apps, especially like Snapchat, to like add people that you don't know because they suggested as people you should add. but there's maybe
Yep.
even like very limited to no mutual friend connection, and then that's how exchanges happen. And I even had because I did a sex ed class last week, I had a student tell me, oh yeah, like everyone all the time just adds people, like adds people from Snapchat that they don't even know. That's how they make friends. And I was just like,
Yeah.
when I
And
heard
also it's
that,
like a cloud
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yes, yeah, absolutely. It's
Because it
so
looks better to
interesting.
have more friends. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about popularity and status. I was just wanted to say, with that activity, I really like the activity, and I actually might have to talk to you offline, Lorna, because
Yeah, sure.
I did a sexting activity, and I didn't think it really landed as well as it should. So I really liked how you did it, and how you were sort of like let's take apart all the things that we don't want to share to people. Like the actual nudity isn't really the issue here; it's all the stuff in the background. So I do really want to pick your brain about how to deliver that activity to like students, because yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If I was to do it in a face-to-face workshop, we'd spend more time. I'd probably spend about half an hour on that. But yeah, I knew you were all had a short amount of time. So yeah, happy
Yeah.
to do that offline in a longer way. Definitely
Oh,
happy to do that.
thanks.
I just have a quick question if we have time.
Yeah.
Just from a legal perspective, what does the law say about parents taking photos of children, say like at the beach or in the bath or things like that?
Yeah, so the law says that if it's kind of like within a socially acceptable way, then it's okay. So for example, if they're in a bikini and they're down at the beach building a sandcastle, okay. If the parent took a photo of them and they're in a sexualized pose, then that's a bit different.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Just with the sharing as well, something that we often find is that often we need to support young people to consider on the different platforms they're using about how stuff is shared. So we know a lot of people that have maybe shared stuff to stories and they didn't really understand on that platform that everybody could see that, even people they weren't friends with. So just whatever platform your young people are on, just maybe looking up what are the things that can happen with images. We've previously made a resource about all the different things that could happen with images. We've just found that the platforms all change so friggin' frequently, which is also why it's confusing for people. So we found that was too much to keep on top of for us. But again, you can Google that stuff as well on the platforms every so often to just keep on top of what the rules are, because they change.
Well, thank you for coming back. It was really great to have you.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. And we'll see everyone next week.
Okay. Bye,
Thanks
everybody.
very much.
Bye.
Thank you.